The Torah has two names for tribes, Matos and Shvatim. One of the parshas in the Torah is Matos, meaning the tribes. But Shvatim, Shevet, is another word. In fact, the word Shevet means a stick, and the word Mate means a stick. And both of them mean tribes. But there is a slight difference between the connotation of each word. The word Mate, which means a staff, is something that's generally used for leaning upon and supporting yourself. It's positive. It points things or animals in the right direction. A mate, which means a staff, interestingly in English also, the word staff, Roshe Hamatos, the Torah talks about the chiefs of staff almost. These are a mate is like a staff of people. The word shevet, which is something that's used to inflict punishment and to chastise, the shevet musar, it's something that's used to give instruction and straighten someone out when they need that. That word shevet is more like a club, which also interestingly in English means a group of people. And I want to talk for a moment about the dual role of communities, tribes and communities, and what they do for a person. There's a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara tells us in Brachos that a person who has a shul, a beis knesses, in his neighborhood, and he does not attend, is called a bad neighbor. My bad neighbors, it quotes a verse where it's a bad neighbor to God, it almost sounds like. This person is a bad neighbor. But that's not all. It says such a person will bring exile upon himself and his children. He's Goreim Golus, he's Mevi Golus. He will bring exile upon himself and upon his descendants. If there's a synagogue, a community gathering place to pray, beis knesses, in his town, and he doesn't attend, that person will wind up in exile. And I think that the meaning is as follows. It was common, I noticed as a rabbi of a shul, that it was common when I was growing up, and many people describe a similar experience, that the Jewish community was tremendously filled with a sense of obligation. People knew they had to go somewhere. There's a shiva house. There's a bris. Somebody in my community is having something. I've got to go. My synagogue is having a Hanukkah party. We have to go. My community is having a speaker, and my parents would go. Whether they were particularly interested or not, I remember that there were times when they were clear. This is not something that I really want to go to, but it's an obligation. And there was a revolution in contemporary psychology where people realize, I don't want to be guilted into things. I'm not being guilted into going places, which at first seems very healthy. But there's a tremendous distinction between guilt and obligation. Sometimes there's things you ought to do because they're the right thing. And the fact that you feel a little bit pushed into it is incredibly positive. One of the words for community is shevet. It pushes you and it chastises you and it forces you to turn up for and do things that maybe you wouldn't want to do otherwise. You need to go visit people when they're sitting shiva. You need to go help people when they need your help, and you need to be there to celebrate someone else's joys. So it's Friday night and someone had a baby boy and they're making a shalom zachor, but you don't like to leave the house Friday night. You're tired. You'd like to go to sleep. You like to be in your pajamas. You have to get up and you have to go. That's something that nowadays isn't happening as much. People are saying, I don't have obligations. I don't want to be guilted into go. If I want to go, I'll go. If I don't want to go, I won't go. Now, here's the problem with that. When you're not a good neighbor, when you're a shachen ra, when you don't participate in the joys of others or the suffering of others or the obligations to community, I believe that when the Talmud says you wind up in exile, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you will leave your home and leave your country and wind up exiled to a foreign land. I think that it could also mean that you will wind up lonely and alone. When the Rambam, when Maimonides describes that a husband has an obligation not to force his wife to stay home. She may go out when she pleases. And he says this is an obligation that a husband has to his wife. It's not just being nice, it's an obligation. He's providing her with something by giving her the opportunity to go out and visit her relatives. Remember, he was living in Egypt, in a Muslim country, where men could really restrict their wives from coming and going, and he said you can't do this. She's not in jail, she's allowed to go. She wants to visit her family and her relatives when and do kindness to other people so that they will come to her in her time of need. The Rambam isn't saying that all women or all people are selfish And that's why they want to go out. He's explaining why is it that a husband has an obligation to his wife to let her visit her friends and relatives. And the reason that's an obligation to her, he might say, I don't want my relatives, your relatives, to get the kindness. The answer is no. That's for her. Otherwise, nobody comes to you. Your place of support, the mate, the staff that supports you, like your staff, just like the club that may beat you into submission, may force you to do things you don't want to do. It's fundamental to our happiness to acknowledge the obligations that come along with community. And what that does is it brings us tremendous fulfillment and tremendous joy. I often hear, we're blessed to be in a city. I live in Los Angeles, and it's a blessed place. So many shuls, so many communities, and oftentimes I will hear from people, I just don't feel any community. And I'll say, oh, what shul do you go to? And the person will say, oh, I hop around. If you haven't gone into the same place week after week, it's very, very different. When a person comes in and says, what can I get from here? That's not how it goes. We need to come in with obligations. What can I contribute to a community? It says, Rabbeinu Yonah writes, that when a person is looking for a place to live, they're supposed to move to a place where they can host guests. The Sefer Menorah Hamor brings this down from the Sefer Yira of Rabbeinu Yonah. You're supposed to move, and it cites Avraham Avinu moving to a place where he could host more guests. That's what Abraham did. You should be looking, when you walk into a synagogue or a community, what can I contribute here? Whether that is something financial, whether that's something emotional, whether that's something, everybody has different things that they can contribute to the world. When a person comes in with obligation and they come to be a good neighbor, then that person comes to live in the very opposite of exile. They live in a redemptive state. They live in a place where other people are there for them, and they wind up with a mata, with a community that's truly built to support and really work together with every one of us. The 15th day of Av, or Tu B'Av, is a special holiday that always represented Jewish unity. It was a time that marriages were made. It was a time that the Jewish people were reunited after years of separation. Multiple times in history, things happened to help unify the Jewish people on the 15th of Av. And we're lucky to have an organization called Yad L'Achim, who decided to do this very important initiative already for a number of years, where they encourage all of the Jewish people to get together at the very same time. Tu B'Av on Friday will be at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Pacific Time. I guess that's 5 p.m. in Israel, and encourage everybody to, at the same exact time, all around the world, whatever time zone you're in, to pray for the Jewish people, for the needs that we have. There's a lot of things that we need. There's people who are suffering. There are people who are ill. There are people that are looking to find their marriage partner. There are people with all kinds of needs among us, and one of the things we believe really matters is caring for other people and praying for them and speaking to Hashem. So, tubaavtogether.com, follow the link. And please join in this very, very important endeavor. Nothing is more important than our communities and the support that we can give others, and ultimately the great blessings that we get as well.
This Friday, August 16th, Tu B'Av, join Yad L'Achim and over 500,000 Jews from across the world uniting together for Shidduchim. Check out tubaavtogether.com. At tubaavtogether.com, you can submit the names of friends and family for tefillah for free. You can also download the Tehillim to be said on Tu B'Av Together and watch many more inspirational videos. Please share this video with friends and family, and let's make it Tu B'Av together.